Welcome to SRG Insights, where we answer your questions about sales, sales management, and sales training. And today's question is,
Muralidhar Rao, CEO Executive Education, Regenesis Business School, India asks, how do you deal with the attitude of, I already know it all, amongst seasoned salespeople and get them to learn new skills that are vital for dealing with a changing marketplace?
well, that's a really interesting question, and one that we frankly run into quite often. And it's the question of the seasoned or experienced rep who's been there, they've done that, and frankly, they're not sure that the training has anything to offer them. We often, or in the training industry, this is referred to sometimes as hostages. They're in the classroom against their own will, and frankly, they'd rather be out selling. I think we have to think about why might they have that resistance, and then we have some ideas to share about some of the things you can do to engage. In terms of why, I think they probably have been through sales training in the past. They've been there, they've been through training and maybe it wasn't that successful. They think that maybe this is going to be a waste of time. They may feel like, hey, I know what works. I've done this before. I don't want to change my ways. I'm hitting my quota. Again, you're taking me out of the field. It's getting towards the end of the quarter. I have deals that I want to work on. And so they're very resistant. They're thinking, what can this person possibly teach me that I haven't known in the past? Well, I think, as the question mentions, part of this is staying up on and consistent with changes in the marketplace. Sales isn't the same as it was 20 years ago, and perhaps they're using techniques that worked back then, but in the day of today's connected buyer, they're more informed, they're more engaged, they may be much further along in the sales process, as we know, before they engage with the rep. Those old techniques may actually not work as well as they once did. So I think that's a critical piece, is to really understand, why are the people resistant? And for us, that's really the first step, is to understand the audience. So we like to do during our intake or our consultation process to really understand the makeup of the people in the group. What is their background? What's their tenure? Where did they come from? And probably most importantly, when was the last time they went through sales training and how successful was that? So if you're following a failed sales training effort from a year or two ago, you understand there's going to be a pretty high bar that you're going to have to overcome to really convince them that this is different or there's some value to bring in the training. So I think the second piece to that is really engaging the leadership from the very start. This starts with the sponsorship of the initiative, making sure they're in alignment with the objectives and the outcomes that we're expecting and that they're expecting from the program, and to really have them help communicate before the training why this is important, what we're expecting to get out of it, and why they want them engaged. One of the most effective training programs I was involved in terms of engagement, the vice president had gone around to each person before the training and said, I'm really looking forward to having you participate and having you involved in the training. And in fact, I'm going to be, paying attention to who's engaged and who's working. Well, that made a huge difference in the way that training evolved and the level of discussions and engagement we had in the exercises. I think that's definitely a best practice. I think another piece is to really communicate before the training what the objectives and the outcomes are, and to give those in advance so that they can have a chance to study, oh, this is interesting, this is valuable, maybe I can get something out of this, as opposed to day one of the training session being the first time they've ever heard of what the objectives are or what you're trying to accomplish. I'd offer another point, which is to really enlist them onto the team. So if we can identify in advance, maybe there are a few seasoned people that are going to be a little resistant, maybe our sponsor or our training liaison has alerted us to that fact, well, let's talk to them. Let's pull them aside before the training or on a break and say, wow, I'd really like to engage you in this role play, or I'd really like you to share your experience because you've been here so long, and really use their sage, right? Use their expertise and experience as a way of both bringing them in and also sharing some of those best practices with the rest of the team. The final piece I'll mention is I think we can possibly elevate the participation and the involvement by treating them a bit like that star athlete. And what I mean by that is even the best athletes in any sport or endeavor have multiple coaches they're working with. They're going to the batting cage or the driving range or the pitch every day and practicing their skills. Well, let's try to get that philosophy across, that even the best performers can still improve, and what we're looking at for sales training, selling skills, sales management training is a way of, in a safe environment, practicing and improving those skills. And we're giving them an opportunity to do that in the classroom, and that's why we'd like to engage them that way. And as we like to say, if they're not practicing in a classroom or a workshop type setting, that really means they're practicing those skills in front of the client, and that's a really expensive way to do the training.